Hey there, new types. This will be another video that runs a bit different than what you're used to for the channel. With GD05 just releasing, most of my time has been invested in the release events rather than locals. So unfortunately, I lack some proper gameplay footage for you this week. However, I wanted to try and get this video out early for those of you who have events coming these next few weeks. For the majority of people, there isn't a lot of time to playtest and brew before the Newtype Challenge Mission 4, and for some of you, that starts this weekend, myself included, as I'll be participating in 2 NTCs. We've already had a few events to look over since GD05 released, such as the Eggman and Eagle's Nest tournaments, but the meta hasn't truly settled, and a lot of what you're seeing now will shift depending on what grows in popularity and dominance. What I do want to leave you with is what I think are pretty strong lists going into this new meta, and ones you can try for yourself before jumping into your own new type challenge or locals. I won't ramble on though. Let's just dive into those decks right away. All right, so we're going to start this one off with the list I'm calling Blorbple. You can see the colors, blue and purple. And I think as the format progresses, this is the kind of deck you're going to see because it just includes blue. Including blue means you can include Strike Freedom. And I think right now, Strike Freedom is probably the best card in the format. It stands alone. You don't need the pilot, but it is a unit that has a very powerful on deploy effect. And then if you do pair it, the effect it has is also incredibly powerful. Putting it in a list like this is exactly what you would assume is going to happen, right? This is Blurple. This is the blue, purple, ping. The only thing it's missing is Amuro. However, you don't need Amuro for this deck. You have blockers now, you have powerful link targets, and you have an incredible top end that you can build towards while controlling the board. And going forward, if you're running blue, I think Strike Freedom becomes your immediate concern of can you fit it in? And if you're not, what are you doing to beat other Strike Freedoms? You have a great early game with this deck. You have a pretty good, powerful mid game. And then your top end with the Strike Freedom allows you to close off the games that a lot of other decks won't allow you to do as well. This has less tokens than, say, a victory package, but it's a very streamlined list, and I think it's going to get you where you want to get to, at least early on in the format, where it gives you the flexibility of ping and board control, and then it gives you a top end to rely on for the end of the game, along with card advantage from card draw and the ability to bottom something to your opponent's deck. And now we're going to move into the next part where I talk about the victory package with Strike Freedom. And again, this is with blue. And I think the obvious option with blue is either Amuro or victory. And as you can see, there's no Amuro here. However, I think that's mostly just because in this list, you don't really have the option to fit too many cards in. And unlike the Banshee Norn list, you don't need to have an overabundance of blue cards, just the cards that make your engine work. This is mostly about consistency here, and V-Dash and Gun Easy are your pseudo Amuros. The other thing with this deck, with that, is that you now have some white blockers and the Justice and the Ale Strike. All of these are very good cards for card advantage, board control, and they allow you to keep the game state rolling towards, again, your Strike Freedom, which is what you're trying to do right now in this current meta. It's either you're beating Strike Freedom or you're playing Strike Freedom. Obviously, that's not the only thing you can do, but I think right now, in the very early stages of this format, that is where you want to be. You can see that you have things like the V2 in there, which does allow this deck to go into a turn 6 or 7 kill. But primarily, you're still buying time, controlling the game until you can just drop Strike Freedom and end the game on the spot. There is Rick Diaz instead of Lafrith. I think the Rick Diaz is going to get you more mileage right now because people haven't quite figured out their ping packages. And a lot of the units in the level 3 range have 3 HP and 4 AP, right? The vanilla Roselle cards. And you're going to want to be able to take them out and trade, and you can still force ping onto it. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of just a card to get you to those stages of level 4 to 6 so you can play out your cards as you need to and just take control of the board for your strike freedom. Obviously, this list is a victory list, so there's card draw. Not a ton, not as much as I think you could. There is no show of resolves, for instance. But I also think this list is very tight. Victory package has grown, and then the cards you can kind of put alongside of it are also very powerful, but they require more than 2 to 3 card choices. You are looking at like the Strike Freedom package with Ale Strike, and that alone is 13 cards. There is a lot of token generation in the victory package, and that is going to help you in the mirror, especially something like the red blue Strike Freedom decks. More units is going to help you have an edge on their end game, and you will be able to take control of the board because they can only bottom the lowest level unit. And if you have a pile of tokens on the board or have the ability to keep putting tokens on the board, they have to deal with them first before they can even make their swing with their Strike Freedom. So you just kind of are overrunning your opponent with your unit advantage, and having a board that is constantly 4+ units is always really good right now, especially if you're just trying to get to a game state where you're playing level 8 and higher and you're not really a deck that's built to win in the early turns. That said, this deck isn't slow, right? I don't want to say it's slow, but you're basically grinding your opponent out at a pretty reasonable rate, and your mid to late game is where you thrive, and that's always how Victory's been. That's how Victory Norn's been, but it is deceptively fast, and people might think that you're taking some slow turns, but you're building up a pretty sizable hand, as well as a pretty sizable board that can just snowball out of nowhere and just wipe your opponent and put them into a position that they're forced to claw back. Now, that doesn't always happen, but as I said, this is a deck that is looking to play 2 to 3 cards a turn, and sometimes, 2 to 3 cards is in one card itself, such as the Victory Gundam with Uso or the Justice. All right. This list wouldn't be complete if I didn't show you one of the Amuro decks. And if you've been paying attention to the meta, like the Eggman events or the Eagle's Nest, New Gundam is strong, Strike Freedom is strong, so why not put both together in the same deck? The level 5 Amuro is very strong, and the Londo Bell package that surrounds it isn't exactly the most consistent yet. You only have so many really good cards to play, but the ones that are playable are still good. And the interesting thing about this blue-green list is you do have 2 cards that ping, but if you think about it, the new Gundam is a bit of ping as well. It does require exiling 3 cards and getting a pilot on it. However, it does allow you to control the board, much like the blue Amuro in general. Amuro in this list links to a ton of cards, and that means at any given point, he becomes a menace. And one thing you should notice here is it is difficult for you to one-shot a Strike Freedom with the cards you have. New Gundam won't do it. It's only a 7/7, whereas the Strike Freedom is a 7/8 with Kira. You will need something like an RX-78 on your turn or to ping the Strike Freedom. It's possible in this deck. However, as a result, you might need to survive a turn with your opponent's Strike Freedom on board. Doing so might require tokens, and honestly, the Leo tokens instead of the Tallgeese is really where the Corsica base shines in terms of the mirror. So setting yourself up for that is pretty good. That said, Corsica base is just value in general. It's still a very good card, and I think it's still an important card in the metagame, especially when unit count on board is just so important. The other thing for this list is I think this is probably going to be the one of the better ramp lists that exists. The Londo Bell units that ramp for you are all linked with Amuro, and they're all quite good in general. I actually think the ramp new Gundam is pretty good. I'm not in love with the ability to link on it. I think it's fine. I don't think you want to link. I think it's actually a trap. I really hate linking it if I can. There's just better units to link to right now, and linking is still a bit of a premium in a deck like this. There are the big units you want to link to. You really want to make sure you link to them, right? You want to make sure you have the ability to double play, and you don't want to get tempted early with a pilot and a unit it can link to and doing something that you could have better value in 1 or 2 turns. And managing that, I think, is going to be the major trick of this deck, because majority of your cards link. Both your Amuros can be played on any unit, to be honest, and they'll still be very strong. So holding back and knowing when you're going to take advantage of that link potential is very important for a deck like this. Last up here, I'm going to give you an aggro list. If you are stuck and don't know what to play aggro. If you don't know what the format's going to be like at the beginning of this format, play aggro. You can still get there. It is still going to be an incredibly strong option, and it is going to be a list that you can take and naturally just do well with if you know how to play aggro. And this is a type of deck that you're going to see. This is effectively what I'm probably assuming personally is going to be the new Blurple. This is going to be the type of deck that you're going to have to deal with and you're going to have to survive. It's got the Blurple ping stuff. The only thing it's missing is the Amuros, but you know what? You have Char, you have Sazabi, you have the ability to end games outright on turn 7 incredibly consistently. You have your Corsicas in your Zeongs. That's unit advantage. You have Sharzaku 2s, and one replaces itself, the other gives you a unit if you link to it. You're able to be incredibly aggressive with this deck, and it's actually incredibly frightening when you see this deck go off. It doesn't take turns off for the most part, and it plays on curve better than most decks in the format. You still get the aggro nut draws, and those are going to end games. I said this in the last video I made, but aggro isn't dead, and decks like this are going to keep its legacy going. They're also going to punish players who think aggro is dead and aren't prepared for it. You are going to need to have a list that can beat something like this, or an NTC, or a Champs, anything that is, semi-competitive or in a more competitive level. Maybe not locals. I don't know if this deck is going to be a locals boogeyman. I don't really think it is. I don't think people are going to gravitate to this nearly as much as Strike Freedom, only because, again, the idea that aggro is dead is still sitting pretty heavy in people's minds. Some people aren't going to look at a list like this and be like, oh, this is super consistent. They're going to look at Strike Freedom. They're going to assume games are going to take 8 to 10 turns, and they're going to bank on that. The people who do pick this list up are going to be aiming for the high rolls. They're going to be aiming for the turn 7 kills. And they're probably going to be doing it more consistently than you think. So know how to play against this deck. Play this deck if you can, just to get some reps in. Also, looking at this list, again, this is very much just like Blurple, right? You have your early aggression and you have your ping control. You have card draw off of first form. And then you also have some recursion effects with your level 5 Char and the Axis. In this list, you can see that Neo Zeon is not really a big deal. There's no Kessa's Jagdoga. However, you can still do some of the good things, and Axis is still card draw for a list like this. You can stagger it, you can get Axis destroyed, you can play Axis out of your graveyard with your Char, and you can do a couple cute things here that can maybe get you those extra cards that you need to see by your turn 7 to see if you can get your Sazabi off. The list is made to rush your opponent and then close yourself out by 6 or 7. And often you can do that with the Zeong alone. I'm going to leave you with that. And remember, these are just my own takes on the meta. I have run a lot of these through Gauntlet within my playtesting groups, and I think these are all capable of standing on their own. However, please remember that all of this is just the opinions of one guy, and at the end of the day, I want you all to do your own thing. If you copy and paste my list, I hope they serve you well. Otherwise, I want you to take them, try them, and then modify them and make them your own. In the end, you're the pilot, Newtype, not me. Let me know if you have found success with other things, maybe similar lists, maybe completely different lists. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and maybe even posting a comment below. But that's going to be it for now. I wish you good luck and happy hunting, pilot. I'll see you in the next one.